session on overcoming public speaking anxiety and presenting with confidence, in particular using tapping, especially our simple energy techniques, SET, to get over your anxiety and enable you to present with confidence and move forward in the ways that you want to. So welcome along those who are here. Like this morning, and it seems that a lot of people will be joining us as we go. And but we'll just move on because we are here. So sorry about that American accent. I've just was speaking this morning with some people from the US, so I must have just adopted the American accent. Let's get on with the disclaimer. In order to move forward, if you're participating or you're watching this, you have to agree that you understand that this program is offered for general informational educational purposes only and doesn't constitute medical advice. Whilst SET, Simple Energy Techniques, provides impressive results for most people, there's no guarantee it will achieve your goals or be as painless as it is for others. And participating in this, you agree to take full responsibility for your own physical and mental health and your use of SET, and to consult your physician and or therapist regarding the use of SET, particularly if you have a mental health problem. Now, in order for this to work, we have to kind of have some housekeeping and ground rules that we go by. I'm going to be taking live questions during the call. Now, you can ask me your question in the chat box or via your microphone if you want to. Now, this morning, people were a little bit surprised, some of them, that it's possible to bring you on via audio or video. But if you want to have that option, it's a good thing to do. Now, in order to speak with me, I will allow you access to speak, and but you need to have a headset or at least have headphones or ear jacks, because if you use the speakers on your computer, we might have a disturbing echo coming through and upsetting everybody else. Unfortunately, that happened this morning. So yeah, even on an iPad, really, just speaking into the iPad, we're going to hear it through your computer. So in that case, if you don't have headphones or a headset with a microphone, you can certainly use a microphone in your laptop or your device, but you need to have some headset or headphones or ear jacks in order to stop that echo. So I'll take questions. Some answers will take longer than others. We'll go for about, I said 30 or 40 minutes, might go a few minutes longer than that. Really depend on what comes up and what people on the call want to cover. I'm going to give you as much as I can in the time that I have to help you to move along with this issue. The call is going to be recorded and made available online. Now, here's how you ask a question. Simplest way is to type your question into the chat box, press send, click send, and then I will be able to read it and everyone else will be able to see it as well. If you have a question now, you could start to type that in there now. In fact, if you want, why not introduce yourself? Unfortunately, when you have a workshop like this, a lot of people are finding are holding back on introducing themselves. Well, I always say, like in a workshop, if you have a fear of volunteering, we can treat that first. So we're going to start doing the tapping. And if you already know the tapping, start tapping now, because the tapping will start to settle down some of that anxiety and allow you to get what you need from the presentation. And the more tapping you do, the better the result that you'll get. Now, if you want to talk live and you want to ask me a question live, you can click to raise your hand via the drop down box, which is at the bottom corner of the attendees list. Now, you can't see the attendees because I've blocked them for everyone's privacy, but the box is still showing, and it should be on the left middle of your screen. And in the right hand corner of that, down here, there's a little smiley face. And if you click on that little triangle, you'll see that what will come up is this selection options. The first one is raise hand, and you can click on that and raise your hand to ask a question live. Now, if you want to ask a question not live, just in the chat box, then simply go to the chat box, type your question into the chat box, and we'll all see it, and I will answer them kind of in the order that they come in. This morning we ended up doing a combination of those. I'm certainly hoping that you will ask me some questions. So while I'm reviewing the tapping right now, I'm going to ask you to think about what your questions and your challenges are in terms of public speaking anxiety, anything to do with using tapping on public speaking anxiety, anything to do about how to become more confident and how to resolve the anxiety and get over your fear, because that's what this really is about. And I want that I want it to be useful for you. And so I want us to really focus in on the issues and challenges for you. A lot of people seem to think sometimes, okay, you know, I have a silly question, or, someone else will have a more important question. That is the issue. And so the key is to already start focusing, if you can, on what is it you need. And if that's the issue, then type that in the chat and say, yeah, I'm even feeling scared to ask a question. Some people just because we're raising the issue of public speaking anxiety, if you have an anxiety problem, even mentioning the word anxiety can make you feel anxious. And I know that. I know that because I've experienced that. Anyone who has experienced panic attacks, for example, the words panic attack can really be upsetting. So if that's the case, the first thing to do is to start doing the tapping. And so I'm going to put up the slide here with a review of the tapping points. And what I'll do for a few moments is I'll put the video on and I'll lead you through just doing some tapping just to help you to settle down any anxiety that you're feeling right now. And then hopefully we'll be able to pick up on some of the issues and aspects that people who are here are interested in. Now, I'm getting a message from Julie. I think that says that you can't hear me so good. Is that correct? Speak softer. Okay. All right. I don't often get that one on these calls. It's sometimes people have really real difficulty with getting the connection, so I end up speaking a little bit louder. But fair enough. Okay, so if it's coming through really strongly for you, that's good. Thank you, Julie. Nice to hear from you in the chat. So far, I only heard from 2 people. There's a lot more of you on this call. So let's start doing some tapping and let's see if we can't get some more people to put some more stuff out there. So you've got the diagram of the points on the screen, and I'm just going to switch this video on, and some of you are going to get that at different times, and just lead you through some tapping on the points. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, but you are familiar with the EFT, in SET we use the same points. If you are not familiar with tapping at all, just follow along. And the first point is on top of the head here. Now, actually, you can start on any point, but let's just start at the top because it's easier to remember to start there and then move down. And then we're going to tap with 2 fingers at the start of one eyebrow. Now, you can tap on either side, so I could tap on this side or I could tap on the other side. And you just tap hard enough to feel it and not hard enough to hurt. And then we're tapping on the side of the eye. And how many times do you tap? It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you have enough of this happening. So this is on the side of the eye at the end of the edge of the temple, then under the eye and the top of the cheek, and under the nose in the midline, in the hollow under the nose, and under the lip, in the hollow under the lip in the midline, and under the collarbone just close into the center, and then under the arm. Ladies, it's about middle of the bra band. Gents, it's about level with the nipple, but on the side of the body, and just tap in there at 90 degrees. And just take a nice deep breath. Now, those are the points that most people who are using EFT use, and in SET we use the finger points as well. So you can tap on the side of the thumb with 2 fingers. Again, you can do it on that hand or you can do it on the other hand, whichever one's easier. Seems this one is easier for you to see, so I'll do it on this one. And then we're just tapping down on the side of each finger. So the side of the index finger, the side of the middle finger, the side of the ring finger, the side of the little finger, and then on the bottom of the hand in that meaty area, that karate chop point. And then on the wrist, and this point is about 2.5 finger widths from the main crease of your wrist. But if you just tap kind of where the watch band would be, and then you can tap on the outside of the wrist as well. And now that you know these points, you can just tap on on any of them in any order. And we found that if you just tap on several of those points and you keep on doing it, the continual tapping, you can get results. Now, a lot of you know we also do the finger tapping. I'll try and get this in front of the camera. So this is where I'm using the thumb of the same hand just as the tapper to tap down on the edge of the fingers of each of that hand. And I'm just tapping kind of down the ladder, as Dave Lake likes to say. And then when you get to the bottom, you can tap back up the ladder. And you can do this very, very subtly, and you can do this out of sight. And even if people see you kind of doing this, it doesn't look that ridiculous to most people. You can also, I'm just tapping on the side of the thumb there using the index finger, or you can use the middle finger, or you can leave that one out and just tap on these points up and down. All right. Now I'm going to assume that now that we've started to do that, that you're going to continue doing this the whole time. So you can tap on one hand or both hands. You can tap on the upper body points, face points and upper body points if you're not out in public. But I could be doing this tapping with my hands under the desk, or you can do this in the boardroom tapping without anyone being able to see this. And if you do more tapping, then your overactive primitive alarm system, which is switched on and has your stress levels high and your life energy is kind of suppressed, this will come down and this will come up. And when that does, then you get not just a shift in feeling, but you get a shift in the way that you're thinking about issues and problems as well. All right, so time for me to switch off myself. I'm going to go back to this slide just to remind everybody about how to ask a question and encourage you to ask those questions. So thank you, LT. Could you let us know as well? It'd be nice to know where people are from. So LT says fear of being seen, and I'm going to assume that you are tapping, LT. Excellent, nice to hear. So London, it's morning time up there. We're heading into the late afternoon, early evening down here in Perth, and be nice to hear some of the other places that people are coming from as well. So LT, as we're doing this, I want you to be tapping, and I'm going to ask everybody else who's on the call to be tapping along at the same time, because that tapping, even if this issue isn't one which is specific to you, it can the tapping can get in and have an influence on your issues and problems. Julie, hey, nice to see you on the call. Assume you're the Julie that we met in the Prague workshop as well, yeah? So yeah, great. Okay, nice to have you here. So we're all tapping, and that aspect of fear of being seen is so common. When I worked with my wife on her issues leading up to presenting at the conference, the fear of being seen and being in the middle of the focus of attention was really a major issue. So every time you can identify an aspect like this, you can apply the tapping to it. And then what you want to do is as you're tapping, you want to notice whatever you're noticing. So as you're tapping, LT, if you can just notice what's happening. In other words, do you have a thought? Do you have an image? Do you have a feeling in your body? Is it an emotion? Is it a body sensation? Where is it? What's the nature of it? And really, we're just mindfully paying attention to it while we continue to tap through all of the points. And so as we do that, we're going to keep on tapping and then notice how it moves and what comes up next. Now that process of kind of just tapping and attending and going with whatever comes next is really, it's what we call acceptance tapping, or following the energy, following the emotional flow. So all right, so good. You're saying when I said fear of being a focus, your stomach dropped. So this is now kind of an aspect within an aspect. And so it's not just, the fear of being seen. it can also be, the fact that everybody's looking at you. You're the focus of attention. Then it may also be, I'll just bring up something that was raised this morning. Um, Fear of being seen to be wrong, or fear of being seen and having something wrong with you. Megan brought up the issue of being seen and having something wrong with her hair or not looking good, that kind of thing as well. This may or may not be an aspect for you. So the key is to go with and flow with and discover what the aspects are for you, and then which ones of those provoke the strongest feeling. So when you say your stomach dropped, now you can put your focus on either the stomach dropped feeling, whatever that is, or you can just focus on the fear of being in focus, and that will kind of tune that feeling in, and you can continue to tap through those different aspects of that. So just keep on tapping for a moment on that, and maybe let us know what that moves into when you do that. Just give you a second to do that. And what you'll notice is that, yeah, okay, so now increased discomfort is, it's going to sound strange for me to say that, but when you type that, I think, good, we have movement. We're kind of moving more into it. Now, the problem with this, when you have distressing emotions, is that can be scary. It's like, no, I don't want things to get worse. And some people, if the first time they do the tapping, they kind of access a stronger part of the problem or another aspect behind the previous aspect, they think the tapping is causing that. It isn't. The tapping is helping you, helping those feelings to process and move through your system. And those feelings need to move you and move through you. And when they're fully processed and have moved through, and kind of like you've listened to them, you've validated them, you've acknowledged them, you've looked them in the eye, you've faced them, whatever you've brought them into the light, however you want to think of it, then they settle down. There's no need for them to continue to stir you up. It's only when feelings are stuck and that they don't move that I have a problem, not when they increase. Because if you keep on tapping, the tapping is the end. So if you have an increased discomfort, now you want to pay attention to that discomfort, and you want to just notice what it's doing and how it's moving and how it wants to move and how it wants to express in your system. And then just keep tapping and notice what it does. It will never stay the same. And if it does stay the same, it means that there's some other aspects underneath it that you might need to get to, or you might need to start asking yourself some questions like, where have I felt this before in my life? Um, where did I learn this? If you have a negative thought that's coming up, like, that you're going to make a fool of yourself, or whatever, you can ask yourself these questions to identify some of the events and things that might be driving them, some of the things that where you learn that being in the public situation is a massive threat situation for you. So keep on tapping, and I assume everybody who's here is going to keep on tapping. And I just want to remind you all this stuff here. Anytime you want to ask a question, click to raise your hand using this little drop down thing next to the smiley face here. If you raise your hand to ask a question, then I can let you come online and you can speak through your microphone, or put your thoughts and feelings um, in the chat box, and we can start to tap on some of those and tap along together, because those issues are going to be related to the issues that other people bring up. And so thanks, LT, for following up with us there. So lots of thoughts coming up. One about being recorded on the call and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, this is what my wife Louise is at a different space with this now, but she's very much letting me know, hey, people want to keep their anonymity. I've been thinking, because there's so much interest in this, in doing a program which is more intense, because we really haven't, we're only just kind of scratching the surface. Although, having said that, some people do a bit of tapping and that's it. You know, David Lake, when he did his tapping with Gary in a 38-minute treatment, that was pretty much 98% of his phobia was cured. But that isn't going to be the case for everybody. It is going to be the case for a lot of people. So there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to need to work through a lot more aspects than that. So we'll do as much as we can in the time that we have today, but I'm going to mention right now that I'm thinking of taking this further, and I'm going to be really interested in your feedback, and I'd love to help you to help me to, if you wouldn't mind, to make that as good as it can be. All right, so yeah, you're being recorded on the call, but at the moment you're thinking about that because nobody knows who LT is. It would be a bit of a guess, but the fear is, yeah, if I speak up on the call, then people are going to hear my voice or whatever. Which, by the way, makes that the next step for you, the next step to contemplate and do some tapping on. Even if you don't take that step, the fact that you take the step of thinking about it and doing some tapping on the anxiety that that provokes is a move forward. It's starting to get tapping into that area of thinking about moving forward rather than just staying stuck. Thanks, Russell. Nice to hear from you. I just want to refer back here to Julie, you know, saying fear of public speaking comes up as a desire to hide, disappear, accompanied by or followed by shame and unworthiness. Now, shame and unworthiness associated with this has to be to do with something that you've learned. You know, in childhood, often people are humiliated in front of the group. You know, the parents may do it, but often teachers do this, and not even. You know, I worked 100 years ago in a lot of schools. I was working with emotionally disturbed kids, so I used to go into schools and observe and so on. And I saw lots of situations where the teacher didn't really do anything wrong. It was just that um, you know, a kid went to do something in front of the group and didn't do it right, and everybody laughed. And sometimes you're in that situation, you laugh as well because it is funny, but that isn't the experience of the person in the situation. And so some of us learn through that experience that you know, if you don't measure up, you're unworthy, or that, you know, you get to be humiliated, and therefore you know, not presenting perfectly is you know, is an awful, horrible situation and a real threat. So this is kind of linked in with that thing of being seen, and being seen to be inadequate and measuring up as inadequate. In fact, one of the biggest challenges we all have is that perfectionism. So I hope you're all tapping along, and I'm really looking for someone who's going to put their hand up and speak live with me. That's going to be fun if we can get anyone to do that. I know some people are unprepared for that. This morning, some people said, if I'd known, I would have. So that's something that I'll eye before the next thing that I do. So thanks, Russell, for saying, sometimes I feel like I'm going to fall apart with nerves and stop speaking. Even pre-speaking, I get the shakes while waiting. Fantastic. Not, I know it doesn't feel fantastic, but it's fantastic you brought that up, because that shaking is the body's natural attempt to discharge the trauma, and that the association of the situation with the threat. Now, I mentioned that we associate it with a threat because we learn that from our past, but in fact, it may even go a little bit further than that. So I assume you're tapping on this, Russell. Even when you've brought that up, that means that you've started to tune into it. You're starting to access some of the material associated with that. And so if you're tapping right now, then you're starting to get the tapping treatment into that. So I'll say this a lot, keep on tapping as we go along. And in fact, I might just put the tapping points up as a reminder to, you know, and if you like, just do a little variation of tapping, whatever. Just make sure that you're tapping the whole time, because we find the more tapping that happens, the better the result. So first of all, the shaking is a natural thing, and some of you, if you get our newsletter, you know I've referred to David Berceli's TRE approach, trauma release exercises. And David has discovered that the shaking is a natural human response to a trauma, and that shaking is designed to release the trauma, but we try and suppress it and we try and stop it. And this is one of the challenges with anxiety, is that anxiety thrives on the attempt to hide anxiety. And so we try not to show that we're shaking, and then we kind of shake more. We try and not to be seen as being anxious, because that would be terrible. And then, what you resist persists. In this case, with the tapping, we're going there. We are allowing it. We're thinking about it. We're focusing on it. And the tapping works on the negatives. In fact, the tapping works best on the negatives. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a positive intention that you create, but the minute you even create that positive intention, up is going to come all your blocks and the reasons why you believe that you can't do that. And the tapping is one of the best ways to get them out of the way, for you to be able to manifest the pure intention, whatever that is, which is to get your message across, to put on a show, to perform, to entertain, whatever it is, to help people to understand stuff, whatever you really want to do this for ultimately. Because ultimately, when you're in front of an audience, it's really about them, and it should be about what you want them to come away with. And anxiety forces us into paying attention only to our own reactions and draws us in to a kind of over self-focus, which kind of makes the anxiety feed on itself. So if you're having that shaking, ultimately one of the best things I can recommend is to do a little bit of shaking deliberately. Now you can shake your body deliberately, and if you're in a place where you can do that now, then just do a bit of shaking now, and it can be a really good thing to do. And I also recommend finding out about this TRE, Trauma Release Exercises, by David Berceli, Berceli. His website is traumaprevention.com. And you may think, well, this isn't a life-threatening trauma, but very good, Russell. You're trialing TRE. Excellent. Well, I'm going to suggest that you combine techniques, especially if you've got an anxiety like I had, which, Dave Lake had a public speaking phobia. The good thing about that being a phobia was that there was only a few aspects. And so, he treated that with Gary, focusing first on the body sensations, then on some key past events where his dad was cranky and upset with him, then on the out on the stage on his fear of saying the wrong thing and stuff like that. And that was 95 to 98% of it. With two or three more things that we did over the years as issues came up, pretty much he hasn't had a problem since. Now, I haven't generally had a problem for quite some years presenting, because I love presenting. I spend most of my time doing it. But back in the day, I used to have massive anxiety, and I used to have that shaking as well. And then when I learned tapping, things started to improve for me. And they started to improve massively, but they didn't improve in every area. So there were certain situations that were harder to get the result with. And it took me a while to learn that, because I thought, well, tapping's not working with this, and some of them I could clear up by working with other people. And I recommend that too, because you're kind of too close to your own problems. But some of them I had to get enough tapping happening on a regular basis before I really got things to shift. I'm just going to put this video back for a moment again, just to say, if this is I don't know which way around I did it before, but if the one up the top here is your stress and your pressure that's on you and your negative chemistry and your negativity, whatever you want to call it, and the one down here is your life energy and your optimism and your capacity to go and with the flow and all that kind of stuff. While this is up, and this is I'm trying to get this in the camera here. While this is elevated, you can bring it down with a series of tapping, But if that's the general rule, it's going to slip back. Now, that's what happens with severe anxiety. It's what happens with generalized anxiety, and that's also what happens with things like depression. And with severe depression and techniques like that, problems like that, you may need to combine extra things with the tapping. And I'm going to suggest that for you too, if you have severe anxiety, if anxiety pervades a lot of your life, and where a lot of tapping on different aspects with this doesn't get the kind of results for you, that daily tapping over time, if you do an hour a day of tapping over 2 weeks and you don't notice a difference, then write to me and let me know. You'll be the first one. Not that everybody gets over their problems completely in that time. Some people need a lot more, but everyone so far who's kind of given us feedback on that has said that they've produced a noticeable difference. So until I kind of got that to come down and stay down, then I didn't get the results on some of those bigger things that I had been getting before. All right, just switch this off so it comes through more clearly for most of you. So what I'll also say is that in recent time, uh, I've got even better results by combining tapping with a few other things, and TRE is one of them, as is logosynthesis, which I mentioned in the first webinar. I'm really fond of combining tapping with logosynthesis, which is a simple technique of using your intention to retrieve your energy that's kind of blocked up and caught with some issues and challenges. All right, so now um, if you're still tapping, the people that have mentioned stuff so far, so Julie and LT and Russell, if you can keep on checking in with us, that's really good, because otherwise, if you're not typing anything, we don't know what's happening for you. So, still saying, what do you focus on in tapping over the hour? Excuse me. Well, the answer is it depends. If you now, it doesn't have to be 1 hour solid. This is the challenge, is that people can't find 1 hour solid. Most people won't do that. So we want that tapping to be added to your day, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. And I would rather say that if you did the tapping and you just got enough of it happening without even trying to be clever or without even focusing on anything, then a lot of your general anxiety issues are going to settle down, and a lot of problems, including this one, are going to get better without even being specifically focused on. However, if you want to get there faster, which a lot of people do, then you can focus on the different aspects um, that are associated with this for you, and different aspects of things like the feelings. So the feeling that you have, you wrote, I feel like I'm going to fall apart. Well, actually, that's more like a thought and a feeling. So you wrote, I feel like I'm going to fall apart with nerves and stop speaking, but actually you have the thought that you're going to fall apart and stop speaking. There's a feeling of that, which is the shakes and all of those things. So these are actually different aspects in themselves. So you can do the tapping in your focused, specific, direct tapping time on all the different aspects that come up for you associated with speaking. And that might be the feelings in your body, the thoughts that you're having, that you're going to fall apart and that you're going to stop speaking, then you won't be able to continue, all of those things. Then you can also tap on where you may have learned this from your past. And so that's the kind of past traumatic negative experiences that you've had, where you learned that speaking in public is not such a good thing to do, and you apply tapping to those, and just simply go through the event and do tapping on all the intense parts of those until you can review that without the same feeling. And then you're also, in this case, you're projecting scenario and gloom. So when I worked with my beautiful wife Louise, and in our last webinar, I put Louise's story up, so I just bring her image up while we're talking about this. And so when Louise was getting prepared to do her presentation at the conference, what I did was I came up with all these different, like, what about this situation and what about that situation, and here's something else that might upset you. And apart from the different situations that she might be in that might cause a problem, such as, when you have to use a microphone. I know for some people having to use the microphone is an aspect that's very upsetting. I know that for a lot of people, while you're waiting for your turn to speak is an aspect that's concerning for a lot of people. I know for some people, when you get out the front and all eyes are on you, that's an aspect. Now, as I'm saying this, some of you are going to be getting stirred up. I know that because I had people in the last group writing that when I was saying those things. And so be tapping now while I'm talking about those things. And that will start to settle some of them down. And you can go away and you can spend more time tapping on those things. And if you have an event coming up or you have something that you want to do and you're going to present at, you can do tapping on all the situations where that might be triggered and all the different feelings and thoughts that are triggered from that. The other thing you can do is you can add exaggeration. Now, with in our PET, provocative energy techniques, we love to exaggerate things. And the exaggeration can combine with tapping to help you to shift not just your perspectives, but also your feelings. And so instead of doing what anxiety wants you to do, which is to look away and to not focus on this, with acceptance and exaggeration, you're going, yes, I'm going to look at it. And not only that, I'm going to look at the worst case scenarios. So you imagine everything that might happen that's a problem. And then I want you to do it while tapping, imagining everything going wrong. And as strange as it seems, this is like adding exposure therapy, but exposure to the max. Because when you really focus on the worst case scenario, first of all, you see that that's far less likely to happen. Secondly, when you can get to the point where if the worst case scenario happened, you know it wouldn't destroy you, then you know you're starting to get over this. All right, so thanks for that question. I see, Julie, you're tells me you're typing every few seconds. This is why. So okay, so thank you. It's just come through now. I'm going to read this out because I know everybody can't see this as well. Some of you have small devices and so on. Recently had an experience on a conference call like this. I was called on and the desire to hide was immediate, though it was only audio, and was accompanied by deep shame and unworthiness. The shame and unworthiness didn't go away for 24 hours until I resourced with a positive emotion, and now it's mostly gone, but the shame still comes up in the pit of my stomach when I think about it. The unworthiness feels like it comes perhaps from very early childhood, emotional neglect perhaps. Not sure about the shame, though there was shaming in school, as you mentioned. All right, so I'm just going to suggest something to you, Julie. It's important from my feeling when I read this is that it's actually important for you to start with your resource emotion and to kind of when they do TRE, they talk about self-regulating, and I think that's really important here. Is that sometimes when you get into this so deeply, it's because part of you thinks, right, I want to clear all this out, and that can play havoc sometimes. And it's like if you detox too quickly. We like to kind of do this more gently, and often people are not being as gentle with themselves as they would like other people to be with them, for example. So I'm going to suggest to you to be gentle with yourself, to spend a little bit of time getting into your own resource state, and um, focusing as well on what your positive intention is here. Now, I've said for years that tapping works on the negative. That doesn't mean that you can't create a positive intention of what you want to have instead of this and what you want to create. Louise finally got to the point where she said, what I want is I want to be able to present confidently, and I want people to really, I want it to be enjoyable, and I want people to laugh. Now, then I kind of came in and said, okay, let's start with a more realistic expectation for now, because how many presentations have you given, and you want everybody to be, you want it to be humorous, and you want it to be eloquent, and you want all this. But that's the beginning of something, even if you go, okay, that's where I want to be at the end. I want to be able to
focus on this without having to have such massive, deep shame and unworthiness? And what would you like to be having instead of that? Um, then, even doing that, you're going to be needing to do some tapping along with that. And I don't want to, I really want to trigger any more of that because you're still processing that. Of course, you would think the first time would be the worst time. And so, if you've gone there and you've gone to the deepest part and you want to, you want to work through this, and some people do, then fine, go for it. But clear the decks for a couple of days. I had one client who, she went away for an entire weekend, and this was a lady who'd actually been severely abused in her childhood, um, and she went by herself for an entire weekend and just went through every event that she could recall and every issue and every aspect. And she did a massive amount of tapping. It was an absolutely fantastic experience for her, getting that much tapping in to all of her worst um, events and issues. And it was great working with her because she did she did most of the work in the therapy, and I got all the credit. It was so fantastic. She wrote a beautiful poem afterwards, and she was called "The Sun in My Soul." In fact, I noticed that on Gary Craig's website the other day. I think I'll put it on our website. I don't know how it didn't get there. um, so yeah, those are some really, really deep um, and difficult feelings. um, but if you've been able to go to the audio and to work on that, then yeah, you're started. But it's like sometimes, for example, some people find when they do the tapping, they tap on a certain point and the feeling gets worse, and then they tap on other point and that brings the problem down. And so what I say is, okay, tap on that point where it feels better for a while, get things feeling really good, and then go to the other point and kind of stir it up a little bit, but not too much. You don't need it to be a 10 in order to resolve this. All we need to do is to kind of open the door slightly and peek through. So same thing goes when you're looking at your unworthiness stuff and what you're calling emotional neglect stuff. When you go looking for those things, if you you know Gary talks about the tearless trauma, and he says, kind of don't go there. Well, it's a little hard when you go looking and you're like, oh, I'm there. Okay, well, yeah, where's your safety net? What's your plan? So go in with a number of resources already in place. In fact, get a hold of your resources and have them available to you before you start doing this. And may I also say again, it's lonely being your own therapist, and we can't do everything on our own. So some of those deeper issues, when you find them, they're only going to really be helped when we check in with someone else, because we need each other ultimately. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And yeah, no worries, LT. Yes, this is actually, I said we'd go for about 30 to 40 minutes, and we're up to about 45. So we're going to kind of, I'm going to wind up in a minute or so, but I just wonder if anyone else has anything right now that's pressing that you'd like to bring up, or maybe Julie or just want to give us a little bit of feedback of where you're at right now. I hope everybody's continuing to tap. And while we're waiting, hopefully, for that last question or that last little bit of feedback from someone, I want to mention that, the program I'm thinking of putting together, and I really want to ask for your help because I'd like to make this the most helpful thing. Um, and so I want to, if you would take a moment to write to me and say, what are your biggest challenges with this? What are the aspects that are the most important for you to resolve? What kind of thing, if you could give me some advice, would you most like to see in that kind of a program, and what would make it work for you the best? That would really help me if you would give me that. Those ideas and that feedback and all that kind of stuff. That'd be really, really helpful for me, because I want to make this something that is really helpful. And all right, so Yeah, this is good. So thanks, Russell. Good feedback. Thank you very much. And Julie, you're saying more nervousness came up, but that's good. We only need nervousness. We don't need overwhelm. If you want to go there, that's fine. And sometimes people want to do things more quickly and work through this stuff. But I always say, as long as it's a challenge, but the challenge doesn't have to be overwhelming. So I think we want to challenge ourselves and move forward. We want to give ourselves little goals. And I'm going to mention Megan again because she's high. She's written to us a lot, and she was in this morning's program, and she's now looking at. She's going to be doing a small photography group, and she's not a real expert on photography, but she feels like she can do that. Now, she says she would feel really bad about doing something on EFT or tapping because she doesn't feel like she knows as much, and there's a lot of people who are more skilled than her and so on. Now, that's something she's going to work up to, and so the next step is for her to start with something which is not not an overwhelming challenge, but it is a step forward. And doing that photography group seems to me an ideal thing. So bringing up a little bit of nervousness, thinking about some aspects for you, doing a bit more tapping on them and getting yourself moving a little bit, and then thinking about what would be the next step, whatever that is. And if I can be part of helping you to move there, I'd really I'd be privileged to do that. But again, there are plenty of people, for example, on our website as well to work with. Just going to remind you again before we finish off here, the page, I think you'll end up with that when you leave here anyway, on public speaking anxiety. That's where I'll ultimately be putting this recording and the other recording, so you'll be able to listen to both if you want to. Some people will get more from one recording than the other. The different issues that people have brought up, you might find that that you benefit from that other call. Yeah, thanks, Julie, for mentioning that. I think in future the European friendly time may fit because it's good for the people in Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia as well as the Europeans and the Brits. But our poor US friends would kind of find this time. No time's going to fit for everybody, but I'm thinking that this kind of time for the future may be the one that covers the most people. That page, if you want to go to it directly, the simplest way is to just go to this one here, EFTdownunder.com/P=3114, which is the drop down under personal development and public speaking anxiety. And I'll keep adding stuff to that as we go. Thank you so much for participating in this. I hope that you've picked up something that's been helpful. And if you've been tapping, and if you continue to tap, and if you can give yourself another few minutes after this to just kind of reflect on what the issues are for you and notice what's happening in your body and keep on doing the tapping, then you will be taking a step forward to having less anxiety in public speaking situations and more confidence. All right, so let's just turn off the record.